Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our backyard. I want to do an update this morning on our shade bed because I was gone for a few days visiting, and the shade bed just exploded, not only with growth but with color. And so I did go through my shade bed and all the different plants a little bit earlier, and I'll link that up at the top so you can see the tags to the different Coleuses that I have. But I did want to give this update because, oh my goodness, have they grown. And in particular, I want to point out this front one, Ruby Slipper. So when I planted it, it had these ruby red leaves. And if you notice now, as it is growing, it has a greenish tip to the outside of the leaf. And that is coming actually on all of Ruby Slippers here. It goes very nicely with the very large big blonde that I have in the center. So the color variation looks very nicely because the green picks up in the outside of the leaf. And so it's something that I do not mind, but it's also something that's a little bit surprising because some of the leaf tips are actually quite a lot of green. And this is what I thought Ruby Slipper was going to, all the leaves of Ruby Slipper was going to be. So that is a little bit interesting. And I actually do have the tags, so I'm going to pull the tag for Ruby Slipper here. And as you can see, it doesn't show any of that green edging. I don't know if this is because I have it in my part shade bed, so it does get morning sun, but it doesn't get a lot of sun throughout the day. It says ruby red foliage pops in containers and the landscape. Full sun and shade. I would say it gets anywhere between 2 and 4 hours of sun, and then it gets the dappled sun. So that's kind of surprising to me. So I did want to point that out for you if any of you are looking at this particular Coleus, Ruby Slipper. So the other thing that's a little bit, I guess, surprising to me is how much Big Blonde is growing. I love how everything is filling in. Remember, I bought these as bedding plants, $1.99 bedding plants at my favorite nursery, and they're growing spectacularly. This one down here, I really loved the foliage, the green and yellow foliage variation in the leaf. This one is called Riverbend. This is a smaller, a little bit smaller size, closer to the Ruby Slipper here. But this whole bed is just doing beautifully. And in the back, I had my favorite Proven Winner Sedona Sunset, and they are growing nicely, but Big Blonde is overtaking them, and I actually thought it would be the reverse from the tags that I had and also through the growing conditions. And I've grown Sedona Sunset before, and it just got huge in my landscape. So that's a little bit interesting to me. I don't mind it. I know it will continue to grow, and I don't think Big Blonde here will overtake it. I'll also need to trim back in here to give it a little bit more air. Okay. The other thing that I have is I have a couple of new Coleuses that I do want to share. And this particular Coleus that I have in a pot, I got this just because I like the coloring on it. And this one is called Festive Dance. It is part sun or shade, and so this has more shade on this side right here in this corner. This is interesting. This self-seeded, I had this Coleus last year, and I don't have a tag on this one, but I really do love the bright red, and so I'm glad that it did reseed, and it's growing very nicely for me. And then I have my caladiums in pots. I did get these as bedding plants also, instead of purchasing pretty well full-grown caladiums, and I wanted to see what that was like this year, and I'm very pleased with the way the caladium color is coming out. I'm pleased with the growth and how they are doing. And then I have talked about my shrimp plants. I have seen my hummingbirds now at my shrimp plants. I mentioned in the last video that I hadn't seen them there yet, but they are there. And the shrimp plants have been marvelously flowering continuously. And I've had them, golly, since I think at the end of February. And so they're going on 3 months, and it's just been beautiful flowering on these 2 new shrimp plants for me. Okay, I'm going to pan this way so you can see down my shade bed. And I do have a couple of, before I go there, I do want to comment, I did cut back some of my sweet potato vine because I want it to stay contained in the bed. But I do like the contrasting colors, as I had mentioned in the past, just because it all ties in nicely with the color scheme that I have going on with the Coleus. But everything is so full and lush. I love how it's growing. And it just tickles me because all these Coleus in here were just $1.99 bedding plants, and they've just been producing very nicely. I did mention that my Turks Cap, I did start from seed, and so I started them indoors in the fall from seed, and then brought them out in the landscape in the spring, and so far so good. Okay, I'm going to come down this way. And I do have a new Coleus that I did purchase that I've purchased fairly recently, within the last month or so, and that is this one. And I don't know if the coloring scheme goes very well. I just kind of liked it when it was at the nursery. Oops, sorry about that. I was trying to get the tag here. And the jury's still out on this one, whether I'm going to keep it here or not, just because of the coloring. But this Coleus is called Special Effects. I like the texture on it. I like the leaf variation on it. And this is another one that can go in full sun or shade. So it does get a couple hours of sun, morning sun, each day. And before I go to my last 2 pots here, I want to talk about my Forsythia sage, or the Salvia madrensis, and it's growing very nicely. Remember, this salvia is a very beautiful salvia that starts blooming in the fall, and it has very long bright yellow bloom spikes, and the hummingbirds and butterflies are so attracted to it in the fall. And mine was still blooming right up until the December freeze that we had. So Forsythia sage is something that I hope to have in my garden a lot. Okay, so these 2 back here, my caladium, really love my caladium. I got this as a bedding plant also. It is growing very nicely. And I had purchased this Coleus a little bit earlier. I had the tag for it, but oh, here it is. It's called Kingwood Torch. This Coleus right here. And then to finish out this shade bed, I had 2 white veined pipe vine, my Dutchman's pipe vine, and what I did post in the community tab because it flowered. And what's interesting is I heard the little gnats and flies or little bugs buzzing around it yesterday. And the flower must have gotten pollinated because it's starting to close. It's not a very pretty flower, but I was really happy to see it because I am hopeful that I can get some seeding here, because I only have 2 plants, and these are more of a ground cover that I was hoping would be able to spread throughout here. And I think I'm going to need a couple more plants to achieve that. But they're hard to get, or they're hard for me to get at the nurseries. I'm going to pan one more time down this shade bed. I'm loving how it looks. Love the color. Love the contrasts. Very good. I thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a fantastic day.